his word, Bible?
The first one. Where law and order functions. You have the volume?
Number 17, Cat Island. In Japan, you can find a place called Tashirojima Island, where cats are in charge. At Tashirojima, the number of cats is higher than the number of human residents, and that's on purpose. Locals have considered cats to be bringers of fortune, and that is extra true if you take care of them and feed them. So the local cats are treated like royalty, even though most of them are kind of feral since many don't actually keep them as pets. There are currently less than 100 residents on Tashirojima, and those few humans are fiercely protected.
No voice. No voice. You see, in some countries, cats are treated better than human beings. In Ghana, not Africa, not just in Ghana, all of Africa, cats are treated better than human beings. Okay, go ahead, put the volume.
Known as Enchanted City is a place that is known for its amazing and magical structures. However, they're not exactly the man-made buildings you might expect from its name. They're actually a collection of rocks that have been formed into distinctive shapes by the wind and the nearby river. These rocks include memorable shapes like a man's face, hippopotami, a turtle, and even bears. Number 15, Colmar, France. Taking a stroll in Colmar will make you feel like you've walked straight into a children's storybook. The town is often referred to as Little Venice because of its scenic waterways and canals, but is also known for its cobblestone streets and classic European village-style houses. With its fountains and lights in the square, it's easy to feel like you're somewhere magical. It's easy to see why this town was the inspiration for the setting of Beauty and the Beast. Number 14, Hidden Beach. This is the Playa del Amor, which is more commonly known as the Hidden Beach because of its magical seclusion. It looks like something out of a fantasy movie with its wide-reaching sandy beach, crystal blue water, and strange rock formation framing it all. While the archipelago it was a part of was created by volcanic activity, this weird cave beach was allegedly caused by bombs that were being tested or dropped in the area. Number 13, Red Sea Beach. This marshy area in southern China looks like it was made through some sort of special effects or Photoshop, but it's actually a naturally occurring phenomenon. The red grasses of the Red Sea Beach marsh come from a plant called Chenopodium. It thrives in alkaline soil, which affects the chemistry of the plant and is part of the reason why the plants turn red. Staring out into this marsh at the peak of the red season will make you feel like you teleported to another world. Number 12, New Schwanstein Castle. King Ludwig II of Bavaria wanted a quaint little getaway from everyday public life. So he built this castle. It's not just any castle, it's one of the most majestic castles you could find anywhere in the world. Construction of the New Schwanstein Castle began in 1868 and didn't finish construction until 1886. This majestic structure has since been turned into a public museum and not just a getaway for a king. Number 11, Austrian National Library. This was formerly known as the Royal Library to the Habsburgs, but has since been converted to the Austrian National Library. Its current collection contains around 2.5 million books, some dating all the way back to the 14th century. Along with books, you can find ancient pressed paper, maps, prints, and even music. All of this combined with its extravagant architecture and design makes the Austrian National Library feel truly magical. Number 10, Palace Castle. This Romanian castle was built between 1873 and 1914 on a route that connected Transylvania and Wallachia. It was built in a neo-Renaissance architectural style and would have cost the equivalent of $120 million by today's standards. Of course, the castle comes complete with several murals, statues, and a crazy garden. This picturesque castle seems straight out of a fantasy painting. Number 9, Paro Takstang. The Paro Takstang is a prominent Himalayan Buddhist temple complex and a sacred site built into a cliffside in the Upper Paro Valley of Bhutan. It is also known by the slightly more dramatic name, Tiger's Nest. This scenic temple is known to be built around the cave where Guru Padmasambhava meditated for 3 years. 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days, 3 hours in the 8th century. To find this temple, you have to climb 10,000 feet by either foot or by mule. Number 8, Angkor Wat. Welcome to the City of Temples, otherwise known as Angkor Wat. It is a religious center in the middle of Southeast Asia and has since become the symbol associated with Cambodia. It is of course majestic and beautiful, but is perhaps more striking because of the way the architecture is destroyed. After decades of falling to neglect and ruin, part of the Angkor Wat was reclaimed by nature. Huge trees and roots cover parts of the buildings and even create new forms on their own. Number 7. Wistman's Wood. This is Wistman's Wood, a place known as an oak wood that is the highest oak wood in terms of altitude in England. It has been mentioned in writings for hundreds of years. It's probably the leftovers of an ancient forest that once covered a much larger area than it does now. While the Wistman's Wood is no longer the big and glorious forest it once was, it is still pretty magical. It is known for its mystical green-looking oak trees that seem like something more of a fantastical past. Number 6. Shiratani Unsuikio Ravine. Japan is home to many famous landmarks, but is also home to some magical places that you probably have never heard of. This is the Shiratani Unsuikio Ravine that is known for its strange, naturally formed shapes. There are some hiking trails through the forest which actually date all the way back to the Edo period, which was the 17th to the 19th century. The moss-covered forest is actually known to muffle the sound of footsteps and voices, creating a mystical bubble of silence around you once you enter. Number 5. Sot de Brot. Tucked away near the bottom of the Aarhus Gorge in Baudry, Switzerland is the Sot de Brot. It is a beautiful stone bridge that makes for a whimsical scene and photo op. This gorge is a very popular place for hikers to visit because of how cool it looks. Surprisingly, no one really knows the origins of this Tolkien-esque structure, which just adds to the magic of it all. Number 4. Crooked Forest. The Crooked Forest is a truly strange place that seems like it could only exist in a magical fairy tale world. For many years, people didn't understand why these trees are curved into such strange shape. It looks almost as if someone casted a curse on this forest, found on the border of Poland and Germany. Some suggest that the trees were buried under a very terrible snowstorm when they were young, but there is an explanation that is much more fascinating, involving a forester who manipulated the trees into a certain shape, hoping to make furniture out of them. No matter what happened to this forest to make it look the way it does, it is a mysterious and magical place to see. Number 3. Jigokudani Monkey Park. Jigokudani translates into Hell's Valley, named as much because of all the naturally occurring hot water springs that cover the whole valley. It is a strange and magical place that is both hot and cold. Because it's so high in the peaks of the mountains, it's pretty much cold and snowy year-round. But the local monkeys have evolved a fun way to resist the cold. They all take long dips in the natural hot tubs that can be found all throughout Hell's Valley. If you happen to find yourself hiking through this valley of extreme temperatures, you'll get to see the whimsical sight of red-faced monkeys soaking in a hot bath, along with piles of fresh snow and beautiful mountain views. Number 2. Fairy Chimney Inn. With a name like the Fairy Chimney Inn, it's hard to not think of a place out of a fairy tale. This strange hotel is actually carved out of a 15,000-year-old Byzantine cave that people once used to live in. If there's anything that seems like it's straight out of fairy tales, it's thousands-year-old cave tunnels that people used to live inside of, turned into a whimsical hotel. Number 1. Wisteria Tunnel. What could be more fantastical than a tunnel of multicolored pastel flowers? This is the Wisteria Tunnel in Kawachi Fuji Gardens in Japan. It is a tunnel that is covered in hanging lavender flowers. Possibly the most magical part of the Wisteria Tunnel is that for most of the year, it looks completely different. In fact, you might think it looks completely unremarkable or even ugly. It is covered in these flowers that bloom for only a few weeks every year. When the tunnel is in bloom though, it transforms into this magical and beautiful tunnel.
Okay, now why am I showing you this thing? All these things, first of all, every country has things that nature has given to it. But when there is no order, no maintenance, there is no glory in it. It is the maintenance, the effort of man that makes everything to be magical. The efforts of man makes anything to become heaven on earth. But the neglect of man makes every heaven to hell. So every country in Africa has got magical places like this. But the neglect of man turns Africa to hell. Really, Africa is the place that's supposed to have the best of attractions, because it's like Florida in America. Why Florida? Because it's warm all the time. But Africa is more warm all the time. The whole of America is going to Florida. The whole of the world is supposed to come to Africa if it had been taken care of. Yeah. So what am I saying here? All these countries, the best, heavenly places on the earth, none of them is a praying country. None of them is a churchy country. Prayer and fasting don't bring development. Prayer, church going don't bring about progress. The possibility of just praying to have progress is 0.0000000. In fact, what will happen is all Africans will be running to these places despite their prayers. Because everybody wants to live in peace. Everybody wants to live in harmony. Everybody wants to live in serenity. And it is only order. So the only place where those places are heavenly places on earth is because human hands work on them. Human beings build them. Human hands maintain them. People put order in those places. We can create heaven wherever we are. In Africa, everywhere, when we put principles of order and things like that in place. Not by making religion. I'm a pastor myself. But but religion kills. Religion brings people backward. Religion dehumanizes the value of man. We need to downplay religion in Africa. We need to begin to live by principles that Christ brought, value systems. Focus on creativity, on dignity of labor, on diligence, on labor, on hard work, rather than on chasing after shadows of miracles. Through law and order, we can create a better world. But when we neglect law and order, we will have perpetual pain all the time, like we have seen today here. Okay? Can you do the second? I show them passing the video. Okay. No, yeah. Let's go back to Perwa, давайте. Или это уже смотрели? Это музыка, нет? Это то музыка, да? Нет. Возвращаемся назад. Ты Колумбии так и не нашел, да, как перестроили? Ну, ты же сказала нет. Одно слово, а ты приложили, мы стали мне говоришь. Не нашла все. Let's do the first one here.
Through a good book, one will live 1,000 lives, meet countless people, weave dreams, pick up character traits, embrace new cultures, and travel to places near, far, and wide. The mind being a person's greatest asset, whatever a person reads will leave a permanent mark, and as such, books have the power to shape a person's entire existence and destiny. Literary experts argue that the measure for the progress and civilization of any nation is in the quality, the number of books, and the number of persons familiarized with reading them. Dr. Aaron Mashenjesi is an associate professor in Makerere University School of Languages, Literature and Communication.
Our horizon of understanding, it also makes us more informed, because we get information about things that we didn't know.
For me, a book is like a journey, you know. You take a journey. For every journey, that's my perspective. I think every journey you take has an impact on you, isn't it?
True.
Yeah? So a book is a journey, a book is life, a book is an experience. And so for me, it's that significant.
They raise concerns about Uganda's reading culture, which according to them has been neglected and leaves a lot to be desired.
We do not make effort to read. Yeah? We do not, it's not part of our habit, it's not part of our daily things that we think about.
Hilda Tuanjedwe is the Executive Director, Uganda Women Writers Association, FEMRIGHT, who says the reading habit can be formed and learned, but it's something that should be taught right from childhood, especially by parents.
We have children. What are we buying for them? What is reading part of what we talk about when these children are growing up? So I think we do not grow up in a book reading culture or a book culture. So instead of buying a book for a present, for example, you buy a cake.
This raises concern about the relevance of the books availed on Uganda's syllabi, right from the lowest levels of learning to tertiary institutions. There are not enough Ugandan books on the syllabi, in spite of Uganda having countless accomplished authors.
Include more local content. That is the way to go. And I'm not just talking about books that are taught in schools or literature syllabi or English comprehensive books, and what kind of stories do you put in there? Are they stories about snow and the Arctic Circle? Are they stories about our society? More local content is what we need. By this I mean that we need more books written about our environment, our setting.
Nobody else, you see, if nobody's going to teach Ugandan literature, it won't be taught in Tanzania, it won't be taught in Kenya, it won't be taught in London, in the UK. And so we are not teaching our literature, but we are busy teaching other people's literatures.
We also spoke to some literature students.
Most of them have ideas that cut across, that involve the Europeans and then even us, the Africans.
Some of these books don't appeal in setting because this is an unfamiliar setting. When they talk of the Wuthering Heights or Whale, we could imagine farms and all that, but it's not so familiar. Yet with the Ugandan books, the setting is so familiar.
They are relevant because they appeal to our emotions. Generally, literature, I've come to realize it's all about things that, they talk about concepts that appeal to our emotions.
Several parts of Uganda's heritage, culture and tourism go unnoticed, and students study and graduate ignorant of their own environment and history because most of what they read has happened in different times and settings. According to Hilda Tuanjedwe, this ought to change, and while foreign written books are relevant, priority should be given to local authors.
How do we balance the menu that we offer our young people in the school system? How do we balance the foreign and the local?
Why have I shown you this one?
Local.
This is a campaign, an effort that was started in Uganda to bring about the reading culture, to generate and create a culture of reading. This is how it's done. Somebody must zero in on a value system and start a campaign on that. It could be any one of us that is watching me right now. That's leadership, maybe leadership. It could be anybody. You know, God might be talking to you who is there. Look around you. What do you have? Look inside your heart. What do you have burden for? That is how we resolve the problem of any society, of any given country. We must be intentional and address and go head on against any vices to create new value system, a new culture that is correspondent with development and civilization. Okay, Asham, Bangladesh. So, yes, is it painful to do or to go through the sliding? Is it painful to go through the process of forming those organizations, NGOs, campaign? Yes. But the pain of not doing them is greater. Is it painful to set up the order to be able to propagate the right value system? Yeah, there is some amount of pain in that. But greater pain is the absence of these things altogether. Okay. Let's put on the light and let's hear our practical contribution. Yeah, Paul, you want to talk? Yeah, please come on. So, what do you say about this whole class of, pain of lack of law and order, and the role of law and order, and intentionally creating value system, law and order, in progress, in development, in civilization, as against the pain of not doing that? And what we have heard so far, and what we can do to make Africa and Nigeria a better place.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that this is a great topic. That it's like basically it's relevant to everyone. So it's a topic that's so resounding and so true, like so down to the point that even though lots of people make the excuse, like concerning Nigeria, that there's too many problems. Where can we even start? Like, look. Nigeria, only God can save Nigeria, just like, woo. But really, when you look at this, that even better than just letting the problem continue is to try and start solving the problem now. Then, I think that's a really good message to propagate at this time. And so, for example, like you said, DSA, that the pain of allowing chaos to happen, so not implementing law and order, is always excruciating. It's always 2 tons compared to the 2 grams of implementing order. And I think a good example here in Ukraine, for example, this is, I guess, a lower scale example compared to the things that might happen in Nigeria. But for example, here in this city, Irpin, it's right outside of Kiev, and there's lots of trees. And recently there's been a lot of construction, and people kind of complain that too many trees are being cut down. And it's like all over Ukraine that a lot of construction is happening, a lot of business development, and that's a good thing on one hand, because there's more opportunities and stuff like that. But on the second hand, there's no law and order to it. So anyone can basically cut down trees wherever they want, in whatever scale they want to do it. And what's happening in other regions, especially mountainous regions in the west of Ukraine, is that people cut down trees, and the trees will be like holding down things on mountains, near the tops of mountains, not near the tops of mountains, but at the bases of mountains or close to where there's water, not too far. And later on, when there's a rainstorm or something, all of this mud and dirt will come undone, and then mix with water and become a flood and overcome people's houses and stuff. So national disasters and catastrophes are happening because there's no law and order in the building of all these buildings and all the cutting down of these trees. So on one hand, all these big companies and stuff, they can get lots of money by building all this stuff. But then there's the greater pain of lives lost just because there's no regulation at all to how much, damage they're actually doing to the environment. And if there was at least one person who started the campaign of doing what they do in other countries, in other developed countries, where there's some parts of land that you cannot touch because it's dangerous if you cut down too many trees there, or if there's limits to the amount of trees you can cut down for a certain project or in a year or something, or if for this amount of trees cut down, this amount of trees are planted, or this amount of buildings that are made for ecological purposes. If we could just implement that value system, then the lives literally lost because of this carelessness, this indifference, this lack of law and order could be prevented. So that's one of the applications I've been thinking of, for example, because like DSA said, God and nature have naturally given every country some resources, every country some chances to be developed, some chances to, like, some countries get their majority of their income from tourism, for example, or at least that's a big sector of their economy. Yeah, that's fine. But that doesn't just happen because, oh, God has blessed them, that country is in the beautiful spots, aren't they so lucky? No, that spots will be overgrown with moss and trees and mosquitoes and everything that tourists would not like if not there was maintenance and people keeping up the order there. So this shows that overall, though bringing order brings about pain, it doesn't only bring about pain, it brings about a fruit, it brings about prosperity. Meanwhile, not bringing about order just brings about death. It brings about chaos, and it brings about just pain that is excruciating and even harder to reverse, just because at one point somebody ignored the resources that they had, or the problem that was just starting out, and they were too lazy to solve it. So I think this is kind of a call to all of us, because we can all see the problems in our society, even things that just seem elementary, like if there's some people that are in a government institution and they are naked and not taken care of, why don't you ask your friends, do you have any old clothes, because I want to donate it to some mentally ill people who nobody's taking care of and they are naked. I mean, who would say no to that? I mean, is that even so hard? Maybe it would be a bit painful to have meetings with the head of that hospital, to talk to all these people, to gather enough clothes, to do this continually. But really, is it that bad? And like, as normal thinking people, wouldn't it even, like, in the end feel better than just standing out there and clapping and just like acting as if you're brain dead? So I think that this lesson has really reinforced the idea that we should never be scared of order. And this is from the littlest things to the biggest things. Because often people avoid work and pain and stuff. But if you never clean your room, for example, it's going to get messier and messier until you, like, aren't ever going to come into that place anymore because it's all, like, stinky and and it's just, like, too unpleasant for you. You can't even live there anymore because you've never cleaned it up or something. Your bed is probably overrun by a mountain of clothes or something. And what would be the good of that, of always putting off the order? You'll just create more problems for yourself. So I think that we should all, and right, about the value system.
The question is about value system about Nigeria.
Yeah, okay.
Or African countries.
Yeah, okay. So, for example, in Nigeria, well, like I haven't been to Nigeria for a while, but what I've heard so far, it shows me that we in Nigeria have to do the exact same thing as what they've been doing in the Soviet Union in their own way, in what they did in America and Europe in the 40s and 50s. We just have to go back to the basics. We have to take every resource that the people have influenced, that has influenced the people, and we have to teach them the bare basics. We have to teach men, for example, that when you come to public transport, you don't just sit anyhow and hiss at anybody who's trying to take your space. You take one spot and let other people sit. You let the elderly sit first. Like, even here in Ukraine, there's a very good thing that it's so much told the younger people that they have to give the elderly a seat in the public transport, that if you're sitting in the public transport and there's an old lady next to you and she doesn't have a seat, she can just ask you to leave, because that's just how everybody is used to it. But at this point, you're not supposed to be sitting there if an old lady doesn't have a seat. You move. You're a young and strong person. You can still stand on your feet. But she doesn't. So you should let her seat. And that's how we should be propagating it. That's how we should be propagating it too. In schools, we should tell them you should respect your elders. You should do this. We should have movies of like how model children or like good people, like in that Mind Your Manners video where they were showing portraying this person as so good because he was letting the ladies go first, because he was greeting people, because he was saying thank you, please, may I. All these things, they seem like little things. They just seem, oh, look at this little movie teaching all these obvious things. But really, when they're done over and over and over over the course of 3 years, like the essay was saying, these really do make a difference. And I know that we are capable, we can do these things. Like even, don't you sometimes see something, a bad habit that you have, and look up on Google how to stop saying all the time, for example. And you go online and there's different blogs and they say 10 tips to stop saying all the time, or stopping whenever you're speaking. You look at those sites, and you read the tips and they help you. If you can't make a video, if you really don't know when to start, why don't you just think of a problem that people have in Nigeria and, for example, write a list of things. If you think that not enough people are on the internet to get these access to this list, why don't you just talk to your relatives about, hey, I've seen this, like, I've compiled a cool list of how I think I can solve this problem. Why don't we tell our friends about this and think about what they do? Really, we have our mouths, we have our hands. We can start spreading good ideas from where we're at, and then we can start building on that and building on that and building on that. So I don't think any of us have an excuse not to be